No one wants to ever hear the words "you have cancer." And it's not only the person who's getting that diagnosis, but it's the whole family and the whole community around them.
Welcome to Believe in Progress, the American Association for Cancer Research Foundation podcast. Join us and be inspired by the incredible stories of those who have faced cancer with strength and resilience, and the medical professionals who are working tirelessly to find new treatments and ultimately a cure. Believe in Progress isn't just about the science of cancer. It's about the human side of this disease. Together, we can make progress in the fight against cancer and bring hope to those who need it most. Matthew Marquardt is a medical student and professional triathlete at The Ohio State University College of Medicine. A varsity swimmer while in college and U.S. Olympic trials qualifier, he graduated from Princeton University in 2021 with a major in chemistry and a minor in entrepreneurship. His interest in cancer and in fundraising for cancer-related causes began during his freshman year of high school, 2012, when one of his childhood friends was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Wanting to say thank you for all of the support she was given throughout her treatments, he decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in 2013 and raised over $6,000 for Make-A-Wish. After multiple family members were diagnosed with cancer, he decided to fundraise again, this time by riding across the U.S. in 2021 and raising over $15,500 for St. Jude Children's Hospital. Now he's studying to become a future cancer surgeon and has unexpectedly become one of the top professional Ironman triathletes in the world. In 2022, he won the Ironman World Championship as an age group athlete, and during his 2023 rookie season as a professional, he put up the third fastest ever debut time at Ironman Texas. Through triathlon, he hopes to use sport to make a difference through cancer awareness and fundraising. This is the Believe in Progress podcast, hosted by the AACR Foundation and featuring Matthew Marquardt. Wonderful, wonderful honor to have Matthew Marquardt with us today.
Thanks for having me, Mitch. It's super exciting and such an honor to be here as well.
Let me tell the audience a quick story of how I got to meet Matthew. So a very, very dear friend of mine, Don Seitz, is a graduate and works at Princeton University. And he told me about this amazing young man that he met, I think in some entrepreneurial type of a program. And Don connected both Matthew and I together via email. We had a conversation. It had to be during COVID. And I learned that Matthew was going to be going to Columbus to medical school at Ohio State University. And I made a connection with Matthew and my good close friend, Doug Ullman. And one thing has led to another. And Matthew, tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what you're doing in Columbus, Ohio.
Absolutely. So I'm a second year, or I guess now a slowly rising third year medical student at Ohio State University. And I'm also a professional triathlete who is trying to use triathlon as a vehicle to raise awareness about cancer and cancer research, with the hope of making an impact and making the world a little bit better of a place.
So I think it was like maybe when you were in high school, one of your friends unfortunately experienced cancer. And I guess that was one of your first experiences with cancer, and then what you were turning a negative into a positive, and you started raising money for cancer research. Can you chat a little bit about that and maybe a little bit about what motivates you to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, my, journey in terms of cancer research and cancer awareness and fundraising started when I was a freshman in high school. So I was 12, 13 years old at the time when my childhood friend Kyla was diagnosed with leukemia. And she, went from one day being a perfectly healthy young lady to, being incredibly weak and all the other things that come with going through cancer treatment. And kind of seeing her go through those treatments was inspirational as well. But what I was also struck by was how much help she got along the way. I mean, it's never an easy path to go through cancer treatment. And it really took a village to kind of cure her, not only cure the disease, but also take care of the person, which I think is just so important. And so at the time, my high school had something called a challenge project, which was you were to spend 30 hours on something that you wouldn't otherwise have done. And now that's a very dangerous description for me, because things that I wouldn't have otherwise done is quite lofty. And so I decided, I was 12 years old at the time, that I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa.
At 12 years old.
Which is at 12 years old. And that stands just over 19,000 feet. It's the tallest mountain in Africa. And I actually wanted to do higher mountains at the time, but I was I had to compromise.
maybe mom and dad got a little bit into that decision, right?
Yeah. There was a couple ultimatums along the way. But while training for that, I don't really know where it came from, but just all of a sudden one day I was like, I want to do something to give back to all the people that have helped Kyla along the way. And so I brought the idea to her, and she said that she really wanted to raise money for Make-A-Wish because she had been granted a wish trip, and that was just such an incredible experience for her. Not only looking forward to that in the future, but as well as being able to go on it. And so that's what we did. We set off to raise money, and we just sold little glow-in-the-dark wristbands that said Kili for Kyla, as in Kilimanjaro for Kyla, and ended up raising over $6,000. And I did successfully summit Mount Kilimanjaro on New Year's Day in 2013. Wow. And so that was really the start of it. And then kind of went throughout the rest of high school. Kyla beat cancer and was in remission and everything, and went throughout the rest of high school. I had a great swimming career and other athletic endeavors as well, and then went to Princeton University, where I swam. And originally I was going to go down the path of clean energy and climate change, but then there was just something in the back of my mind that said, you should maybe check out medicine. And during that year, I helped launch a clean energy startup and a healthcare startup, which got me connected with Dawn. And then so the rest of the history with Mitch is right there.
All right.
And also during college, I had multiple other family members diagnosed with cancer. And Kyla also, her cancer came back. And I think one of the things that was obviously really tough, but at the time it was 6 or 7 years after she had finished her first round of treatments. And what was really incredible is that this time around she was using a combination of chemotherapy and immunotherapy.
Yes.
And so seeing the difference in the quality of her life with her treatments from the first time versus the second time was really, really eye-opening. Second time around, we would go on 5-6 mile walks when she had her infusion backpack on. And that was just kind of the coolest thing ever. And so then the next endeavor was COVID. It was obviously has been a terrible thing. And one of the consequences of it was that it canceled my senior swim season in college. And so for the first time in my life, I had a 1 month period of time in January during winter break where I had no commitments. I literally had nothing. And so it was the same thing again as what happened in high school. Hey, you have a unique opportunity here to do something that you never would have done otherwise. So I went to thinking about things, what are the things I want to do? What are the things that I can do, given that it's COVID? You obviously can't travel internationally and whatnot. And so I decided that it would be a great idea to bike across the United States. And I told my parents about 3 weeks before we started the trip. My dad hopped on board and was my support team. And on the way out there, again, I just had the feeling, I was like, there is, I might not be able to do this. There's a significant risk of failure, but also there's an opportunity here to make a difference in the world. And so I decided to raise money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And over the course of the 20-day bike ride, I did 2,500 miles and raised $15,500 for St. Jude's at the time. And so,
That's
that was
awesome.
the second thing.
Let me ask you a question about that. Did you do, did you go the Route 66 way, across the country?
No, I I did the southernmost route that I could do because this was January.
Okay.
And so I had to avoid, I was trying to avoid the snow as much as I could.
Right.
So I pretty much hugged the border and, the Gulf Coast, like all the way across the US.
It was just you and your dad?
Just me and my dad.
Well, that must have been really special for your father, I'm sure.
It was really an incredible opportunity, like an incredible experience, and just an amazing memories. Something that I know that I'll never have again in the rest of my life. So
did you get the opportunity to go to St. Jude's and present the check, or did you get that opportunity to meet any of the young, pediatric cancer patients there?
No, I did not, because it was the height of COVID, and so it was January 2021.
Right.
And so unfortunately that was not possible. And as soon as I finished the bike ride, I had to start my senior year of my senior spring of college.
I gotcha. Okay. So then tell us, medical school, you decided that you wanted to go into medical school. I think you're focusing on area cancer and surgery, or could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so right now, my two biggest interests are either in neurosurgery, focusing on pituitary tumors or kind of skull base type neurosurgery procedures, or head and neck cancer. So those are the kind of the two areas that I'm most interested in. I'm actually about to embark on a research year where I'm very fortunate to have been awarded a Pelotonia fellowship.
Yep.
Where I'm doing head and neck cancer research with a surgeon here at Ohio State.
How did you end up picking Ohio State, or they picking you, obviously? But the James has a wonderful reputation, and it's a phenomenal cancer research center. I know it well, but like to hear from you about your selection.
I'm from Ohio, and so being able to go back to my home state institution, be close to family, just made the most sense out of anything else. And I think even though I've done a lot, for cancer fundraising in the past, I don't know. So I am fairly new to medicine. When I'm graduating college, I basically decided with a year and a half to go that I wanted to become a doctor instead of become an entrepreneur in the climate space. And so I really didn't, I did my research on my institutions, but I honestly really was not that familiar with the James when I got here. And then as I started to learn more and everything, it's just been absolutely incredible to think that I have the James kind of right here to be able to take advantage of that. And also, I think the other thing that's been amazing is the Pelotonia community, which is just a bike ride to raise money for cancer like no other.
It sure is. And tell us about your Pelotonia. You rode in Pelotonia last year, I think, right? Was that your first Pelotonia ride? You raised money for that, but tell us about that experience and how the community affects you.
I think my first real experience with Pelotonia was somehow in Cincinnati. I grew up in Cincinnati and I'd never heard of it, of Pelotonia. Maybe that's just because I was living in my own bubble or under my own rock.
Right.
But when I got to Columbus, within the first day or two, you see cars driving around with the green arrow, the green Pelotonia arrow. You drive on the highway, there's barns and buildings with the green arrow painted on it. And so immediately I was just struck by wow, whatever this thing is, it very much has had an impact on this community. And then when I learned about it and the impact that Pelotonia has had, the number of lives that it's reached and the number of people that participate in every year, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a ride, a movement unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I was like, I have to get involved. And so last year I was one of the captains for the Ohio State Pelotonia fundraising team. And I think we had 17 medical student riders, which is just awesome because, you have to raise money, and raising any sort of money is a non-insignificant feat for med students who are often kind of very much in debt. And so the fact that we had 17 was awesome. And we're hoping to have even more than that this year. And just riding in Ride Weekend was, I think just incredibly powerful because as you're going through, I did the 100-mile ride, and just as you're passing people, like everyone has on their own jerseys for their different Pelotons. Some of them say I ride for X, Y, Z,
Right.
and you really just get goosebumps as you're riding, and just the energy and the passion by all the other participants is really something incredible, and it's almost impossible to describe.
Matthew, does that affect your approach to becoming a doctor and perhaps how you will be a doctor one day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, no one wants to ever hear the words you have cancer. And it's not only the person, and I think it's also just realizing that it's not only the person who's getting that diagnosis, but it's the whole family and the whole community around them. And so I think it's just really shown me, one, how much of a community effort cancer is in particular. Like it's not one patient on their own, it's really a village. And so you have to take that into consideration when you're doing their care. And I think just as well, it just really motivates me to, advance research and just provide the absolute best care that I can, because, a lot of these cancers are just really, really cruel beasts. And we need to figure out a way to, kind of control them and, get rid of them. So
I introduced you to Doug Ullman, who's the CEO of Pelotonia. You probably met Joe as well, who works at Pelotonia. Impressions, and that was really your first intro to the organization part of Pelotonia. Obviously, you just chatted about seeing the logos and the brand all around, but I'm really interested to know your impressions of Doug. Doug and I go way back to lives in Maryland, and he worked for me when we both worked at Livestrong together. But I thought when I made that introduction, you two would really hit it off, and I'm guessing that's what's happened.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like the best description of it is a combination of professional but also incredibly human. Doug and Joe are obviously very busy raising a boatload of money for Pelotonia and getting the word out. But they've also always been willing to kind of drop everything to help me if I need anything at any point in time. And it's really been fun to kind of get to know them and see them at all the different events and say hi. And they've followed along my triathlon endeavors as well. So it's just been a phenomenal time. And, Pelotonia is so lucky to have such great leaders on their board, because they really are thinking at the cutting edge of like, how can we get this money to go the furthest and, have the biggest impact.
So I want to pivot to triathlon in 1 minute, but I want you to know, and you may know this, we at the AACR are beneficiaries of a wonderful collaboration with Victoria's Secret and Pelotonia. We're funding some awesome, women's cancer initiatives. We couldn't be prouder of the relationship. Victoria's Secret is an unbelievable partner, and Pelotonia is an unbelievable partner. And when you match like the power of Pelotonia and Victoria's Secret with a world-class scientific organization, the AACR, it's a match made in heaven. So we wanted to say we appreciate all the people out there raising money for Pelotonia. It really is going a long way out there. So let's pivot for a second to triathlon and medical student, world-class triathlete, just participated in I think it was your first professional event a couple weeks ago. I believe a third place podium visit. Tell us a little bit about your desires and why triathlons.
So triathlon was something that I very much stumbled into, as much as it's probably hard to believe me saying that, but I started triathlon about 5 months before I started med school, truly with the intention of doing one race and then being done. And it was just a fun thing to do my senior year of college. And because, as I said, COVID-19 canceled my senior swim season. I had the competitive itch, wanted to train for something. So I signed up for a half Ironman and didn't really have any gear, borrowed a bike, borrowed a wetsuit, borrowed everything. And I went to it and I got fourth out of 1,400 people. At which point my coach starts begging me that I should stay in the sport, but I'm, I'm like, I'm going to med school. There's no time in med school for training. Like, I need to focus on studying and doing research and whatnot. And he's like, well, like, can you just give me like, one more race? So I had qualified for the world championships as an age grouper that year. So I went to that, and that was 6 weeks into med school. And again, I was like, okay, I can do this for 6 weeks. I'll train 6 weeks in med school, then I'll be done. Well, I ended up getting second in my age group. And my coach was like, okay. And so then it was really like a decision time, because it was like, well, I'm 6 weeks into med school. I was not planning on being an athlete in med school. But there's clearly something here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know exactly what, but there's something. And so after a lot of discussions with a bunch of physicians, and, Doug was definitely a part of that discussion, I decided to go for it. And last season, and, train and just see what would happen for one season. Again, like, let's just do one full season, see what happens.
Right.
Well, last season was amazing. I won every single race that I entered, including I got a world title as an amateur in Hawaii at the
Kona, right?
the big show. Yep, at Kona. So I was Ironman world champion as an amateur. And so then it was like, okay, well, it's very clear that there is something here again. And so let's go professional. And so again, trained this past winter and just had my first race as a professional, and just went way better than I could have ever imagined. I know a lot of people don't know these times, but I went 7:45 in a full distance Ironman, 7 hours, 45 minutes, which was the third fastest debut time ever for a professional.
Ever.
And it was the second fastest time by an American ever. And I got third overall in the race. And so just really like an incredible race. And it was a nail biter. It came down to the wire. The difference between first and third was only 21 seconds, which in an 8-hour race is basically a photo finish. And so that's really, where I'm at with triathlon. And I think, one of the things that drives me the most is why I do it, which is I represent the James Cancer Center. And then obviously as a, correlated to that is Pelotonia. And so really, my goal is to use triathlon to make a difference and raise money for cancer research and raise awareness, and, just do something different. Everyone in triathlon is raising, I have sponsors, like I have a bike sponsor and everything. But I was very particular in who I chose, because I wanted to make sure that I had brands that I felt like were doing things right, and they weren't just trying to sell product, but they were also trying to make a difference. And so I'm just super happy about the team that I have and, behind me. And, the goal is like, how can we use triathlon to make a difference? And we're still writing that story, and I'm incredibly excited to see where it goes.
I feel like I have a small something to do with this, this courtship, but you're doing all the work. But I'm proud of you, man. It's really amazing. How do you manage, though, training and school and life, basically? How are you managing all this?
Yeah, it's not easy. But I will say that I feel like I've been bred for it over kind of my whole life. I've done multiple sports and really done high intensity academics. I was a chemistry major at Princeton. And so at this point, I guess doing training 20 hours a week and also doing challenging academics is almost second nature. But at the same time, like, even it's not easy. You have to be super efficient when you're studying, and you have to prioritize. And I'm just super fortunate for like a couple things. Like, one, at first, everyone in my med school class thought I just didn't understand.
Right, I'm sure.
So it's really funny to kind of be like, guys, what'd you think about me in the first 4 or 5 months of med school?
Right.
Because everyone was like, well, we had no idea what to think. Like, is this guy for real or not? Mm-hmm. And so like, I definitely have to sacrifice social time at times, but I also feel like I get more than enough social time, because I really I think overall, I just focus on the quality of everything that I do in life instead of quantity. And so, I'd much rather have a 1 hour, interaction with a friend that's really, really good than spending 6 hours until 2 a.m., out at a bar or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also just, you have to be super efficient with everything.
Now, are you doing, I think I read something that you're doing, it was some sleep research, or there's something to do with sleep. Could you expand on that just a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea in college. And so for those that don't know, basically I stopped breathing in the middle of the night because my airway collapses. And so I have a special treatment. I have a special mouth guard that keeps that all open for me. But when that diagnosis happened, I really got interested in, okay, like, what is sleep? How does sleep impact everything from athletic performance to academic performance, just to also like emotions and stress and, all aspects of life. And so I've done a lot of reading on, and a lot of experimenting on myself of like, okay, what's the best time to go to bed? What's the best way to, get the best sleep possible? And so I'm definitely not perfect. As we've said, med school is hard, and balancing it with triathlon, there have definitely been periods of time where I don't get enough sleep. But I think one of the keys to my success is that I know when to really prioritize sleep, and when sleep really, really gets prioritized, I know how to optimize it pretty well based on like who I am and what I need.
And when do you train? Do you different times, or do you have to train in the morning?
Yeah, so the other key to my success is my coach, because he puts up with a lot.
I'm sure.
My schedule is not easy to deal with. I'm definitely an early morning person, so I try and get one workout in before I start studying for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends. I've had to get up at 4 a.m. before to do workouts, but generally speaking, it's like a 6 a.m. workout, and then I fit in the other workout basically whenever I can in the afternoon, depending on when classes are. But yeah, I do about 20 hours a week of training.
And nutrition's probably important too.
Yeah, and that's actually been one of the things that was the most interesting to me, is that it takes a lot of time to eat properly. Yes. And to do it all right, like, it takes a lot of work.
I'm sure it does. Matthew, from your perspective, tell me and tell the audience why you think it's so vitally important for people to invest dollars, donate dollars for cancer research. Again, you've been doing this actively since you were 11 or 12 years old, raising money, but I want people to hear from your perspective as someone that has friends that are dealing with cancer, but now also someone that's studying in medical school to give back and be a cancer doc. Why is it important to invest in cancer research?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the simplest is because it makes a difference. And I have proof of that in the experience that I went through with Kyla, from the first time that she was treated to the way she was treated the second time. The number of breakthroughs that we've had in cancer treatment and research in the past 10 years in particular has been just incredibly inspiring. And the pace of innovation is only picking up. And so while some people, I think, might be like, oh, the work's done, the breakthroughs have happened, I really think we're just on the cusp of things, and what's going to happen in the next 5, 10 to 20 years is really what's going to be the most important. And so I think, and the funding is how research happens. It's without it, none of this would have happened. And so it's just absolutely crucial that people continue to fundraise and to continue to invest in cancer research, because I think, as I mentioned, the return on that investment in terms of lives saved and better outcomes is going to be exponential in the next few decades.
When's the next race?
I have about 6 weeks. End of June, I'm racing an Ironman Coeur d'Alene, and we'll see what happens.
And it's an Ironman, obviously, right?
Yep.
Well,
yep. Ironman.
So if people want to follow you on Instagram or social media, or want to kind of keep an eye on what you're doing, what's the best way for people to follow you?
Yeah. So the easiest, or I guess the one that I in the most active on is Instagram. I'm Matthew D. Marquardt. And then I'm also on Twitter. That's more for my medical stuff.
Okay.
So if you want to see the medical research and whatnot, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm MD_Marquardt1.
Well, Matthew, I can't tell you how proud of you I am and what you're doing in your professional athletic career, but the message of your professional athletic career about giving back, that is really, really awesome, and extremely proud of what you're doing from a medical school perspective and where you're going to go. And the James and we are all lucky to have you around, and, you know, being a great ambassador out there. We'll have to get you to an AACR meeting here soon so you can learn about the great science that we're doing as an organization. But you're terrific. We wish you nothing but the best of luck in the future, and really, really appreciate a few minutes of your time today. And again, best of luck in medical school, best of luck with Pelotonia, and please give your family my best and our best.
Thanks, Mitch, so much. It was really a ton of fun, and again, such an honor to talk with you today.
Thanks, Matthew. Once again, thank you to our listeners, supporters, and donors. Remember, your support drives the progress against cancer. Once again, please consider subscribing to our podcast, sharing this episode with a friend, and heading over to our website, aacr.org, to consider making a donation. Thank you for listening to Believe in Progress, the AACR Foundation podcast. This podcast is produced by CollegeCast, LLC. Please visit www.collegecastpodcast.com for more information. And remember, cancer research saves lives.